Okay.
Greetings, 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 disruptors. We have Dr. Abigail Joseph with us today, and we are going to have a conversation about reigniting your creativity and escaping the burnout cycle. Dr. Abigail, thank you and welcome to the conversation.
Thank you for having me, Selena. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have this conversation. We were having a great conversation before we even got to this.
Right.
I know it's going to be good. And let's just jump right in, shall we?
Let's do
Um,
it.
so many busy professionals feel like they've lost their creativity. Where do you think it goes, and how do you get it back?
Oh, this is a great question. This is everything that I'm all about. As busy professionals, we are tied to our jobs, to all of the duties that we have. We are trying to serve everyone else. And the very last thing that we want to tap into, even though we know it's good for our heart and for our souls, is
Yeah.
our creativity. That gets put at the bottom of the list. And the irony of it all is
Hmm.
that if we leaned into that more, we would be more joyful and feel more alive. And the things that are weighing us down would become
Hmm.
a little lighter because we have our spirit is being fed.
Absolutely. I find for me, the creativity, um, I can't get there if I'm not rested or I feel like I have time, right? If I'm rushing and I feel like I don't have time, like there's a thousand things on the list and the week looks heavy and all of that, that I just cannot feel like I can be creative, like I'm tapped in.
Yes,
What
yes.
tends to happen there?
Yeah, so that's it. Time. That is a thing I hear from my clients over and over again. I don't have time.
Me
And
too.
and I like to say, but you have time to sit on the couch and maybe watch a little TV, watch a series, go to a movie. You have time to do your chores, which we put high on the list, which is important.
Hmm.
We have time to go to work. I heard once about if you add up the time that we put towards sleeping, what that's 8 times, whatever the math is. There's a lot of hours in the day. There are a lot of hours in the day that we don't tap into. And
Absolutely.
so when we say we don't have time, really what we're saying is we're not prioritizing ourselves and our creativity. It's not that we don't have time, it's that we don't think it's a priority. And we need to figure out how to make that a priority because that is the thing that is going to help propel us forward
Hmm.
into our next steps and our next visions and our next goals. Without that, we're going to stay stagnant. We're going to stay stuck. We're going to stay in this overwhelm. We're going to keep being anxious. Um, and so it's about prioritizing. It's not that we don't have the time, it's about making it a priority.
Making it a priority. Creativity, making creativity a priority. So I have a question I ask every guest.
Yeah.
How do you show up in the world, Dr. Abigail?
Oh, I show up. I show up as the innovation doctor. That is my business. And my goal is to help busy professional women prioritize their creativity because I know what it's like when you don't prioritize that creativity. I like to call myself a recovering educator. I worked in K-12 schools for over 17 years, teaching middle school. And as part of that time, I used to work in innovation spaces. So my role was to teach technology, to teach computer programming. I ran maker spaces. So, spaces within the schools where kids had access to 3D printers and
Oh, nice.
laser cutters and sewing machines and electronics. And I was their guide to making their ideas come to life.
Absolutely. I love that.
And then at one point, I worked at a school for 3 years where they had a beautiful innovation lab. It had a wood shop, it had an industrial laser cutter, we had all these 3D printers.
Hmm.
And then I realized in the 3 years that I worked at that school, I made one project for myself.
Oh, wow.
I had access to all those tools and only made one thing.
Oh,
And then
my.
I knew that was a problem. And I was a little burnt out trying to change my role at the school. It wasn't going to work out. And I had the opportunity in my life to take a teacher gap year.
Okay.
And so I stepped away from teaching for a year. I did a little bit part-time. But in that year, the community maker space in my area,
Hmm.
sorry, the community college in my area uh, began to create a makerspace. And in that year, I spent all my time going there, learning the tools, making things, being around other people who were being creative and
Yeah.
making, and I found my joy. I found my bliss. I
I love
knew that after that year, I could not go back to the same person that I was, just giving, 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 and never doing that for myself.
Shay. I can fully relate to that. So what was the one project that you did find time to make for yourself in
Uh,
that year? What was it?
yeah. So that project that I made, it was a kind of almost like a stained glass, but not. It was laser cut, so it was acrylic pieces
Mm,
in a little kind of wood laser cut, and it was a beach scene with two footprints in the sand. And
mm,
those are the footprints of the beach scene representing where my parents both are hail from, Trinidad and Tobago. And the beach and the footsteps are their footsteps in the sand because they both passed and left this world. And
mm.
that was my tribute to them and my reminder every time I look at it that they are
Yeah.
with me and guiding me.
Oh, I love that so much. Oh my. So where do you have it displayed?
It's displayed in my living room. Um, on my living room wall. So every time I walk by it, I can see it.
I
And
love
if it's in the evening, there's a little light box I made. I can light it up and see, their footsteps in the sand, and I know that they're there.
there. I love that so much for you. That's
So
amazing.
if I'm gonna make one thing, that was a good thing to make. Um,
Hmm.
but the fact that, 3 years in this space with access to all these tools, that I didn't
Mm.
have the time or prioritize the time or myself to to do these other things. That was the piece. I was prioritizing giving to the kids, creating, helping them do their projects, all these things, and
Yeah.
but myself, no. So from that point on, after that year that I spent in that makerspace,
Hmm.
I knew that this was important and something that I needed to bring to other women, because we are the ones who usually prioritize everyone else, every other thing, except for what really nourishes our souls.
I love that. I didn't realize we had such a in common mission because I serve that woman that does not prioritize herself to help
Mm,
her feel safe enough to be herself and live her own life.
yes,
So now then I can have her come over and be creative with you.
indeed. She
Yeah,
can come to me and nourish that creative side of her.
absolutely. And then we go into so you said busy professional women, right?
Yeah.
Um, so many feel like they've lost their creativity. Where do you think it goes? Oh, that was the first question. That's not the question I had for you. You talk about innovation beyond business. How can innovation be the key to designing a fulfilling, joyful life, not just a profitable one?
Yeah. Well, what I do with the people that come into my world is the first step is prior realizing that you are a creative being and everyone is creative, even if they don't think they have any type of creative skill whatsoever. We are
Yeah.
all creative in our own unique and beautiful ways. So that's the first step is realizing that you are creative. And then the next step is to prioritize that creativity and realize that you need to make it a priority, and that priority is important. And once you've decided about making it a priority, then you start thinking, oh, I have ideas. I've got ideas about things I can bring into the world, right? I have ideas about ways I can change the world. It doesn't necessarily need to be a physical project or object or anything like that. It could just
Yeah.
be, I want to change how my community works, or I want to change, I want to maybe bring more arts and things like that into my life, or I'm
Mhm.
a cook. I want to bring more of that back into my life, whatever your creativity language is. You start having ideas about things you want to do. And then but then it's, how do I do that? How do
Mhm.
I how do I bring these ideas that I have to life and make the time to make that happen? And
Right.
that's where the innovation piece comes in. And that's the piece that I say is important for the average person to understand and learn about, because that is the secret sauce that all these big companies are using, all these
Mhm.
large organizations, those products and services that we buy and purchase. They are all using an innovation framework or some variation thereof, what is called design thinking. And design thinking is a human-centered approach to problem solving. That's it. But that is something that is not taught in schools. It's not taught to the average person. It's like this secret trade secret of the tech sector, of large organizations, of corporate America, and I'm bringing it to the average person.
I
I'm
love it.
saying
You're taking notes,
you
girl.
can you
Good.
can have a human-centered design strategy that you utilize for yourself to help you get unstuck, to help you
Mhm.
move forward, to help you always being in action. Because what these design skills and these innovation skills give you is an easy, low risk way to move forward. Often we get stuck in I don't know about you, but I get stuck in decision analysis paralysis, where I need to make a decision, I want to make a choice, and I'm thinking about all the different avenues and oh gosh, I don't know what to choose. And then you just don't do anything because you just feel overwhelmed and you're stuck. The beauty of this design framework is
Mhm.
that it feels low risk because it's a process and you're just implementing the process. You're just doing these steps. And so then it takes away the attachment to the
Yeah.
outcome
Love
and
that.
just propels you to do little experiments, to try one little thing. If it doesn't work, you go back, you try something else. But it develops these mindsets of curiosity,
Mhm.
risk taking, creative thinking, all these things. And the biggest thing is a bias towards action. That's the step. We often get stuck. We often feel stuck, and then we just don't do anything at all. But this design process says you have options, you have choices. I was
Right.
just teaching a workshop the other night, and the one takeaway this one participant said, which really stuck with me, is
Mhm.
that before I came to this workshop, I used to think my challenges were something that I had to overcome, that were
Mm.
keeping me stuck. But really, they're just situations, and I have choices in those situations. I have
That's,
choices that I can make. And that was like the liberation of the process.
yeah,
I realize, yeah, we're not challenged. We just have a situation that we have to deal with. And if we have some frameworks to deal with those situations, it doesn't feel as daunting and as heavy.
yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like community, right?
Yes.
Because you were teaching a class.
Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, yeah.
That's
A big part
fantastic.
of the process is collaboration.
I love that. I love collaboration. You're collaborating tonight. I love that. I love that.
Yes.
What, so I'm known as the disruptor. And so I'd like to know, what did you have to disrupt in your own life?
Ooh, how long do we have, Selena? No.
We got time, sis. We got time.
um, I have had to disrupt a lot of things. I am a academically trained computer scientist,
Ooh, that
and
sound like some big words.
computer science, engineering. Yes. So that is what my PhD is in. It's in computer science.
Mm,
And I did my degrees from 1991 to 2002 in a field where white men dominated and prevailed. And so my disruption was just me as a Black woman pursuing degrees in computer science.
mm,
Um, often, and even when I went into K-12 education after that, I worked in independent schools.
yeah.
And so I was often one of two Black faculty on staff.
Hmm.
And that is a disruption in itself for the people that I work with, the students that see me. Um, all of that was a battle to, a challenge, a daily challenge to overcome. And really, I was seeking, I think what burned me out in education was seeking the validity of my existence. So
Hmm.
I was seeking to be seen, heard, and valued for what I was bringing. And I
Yeah.
wasn't getting that. That wasn't what I was getting. And that, before we started, I started to talk about how I decided I needed to do something different. And I was like, this educator role, this educator title,
Mhm.
it's okay, but I need something to step into.
Yeah.
And I came up with I didn't know what I wanted to do next, but I knew it had innovation and creativity was going to be a part of it.
Mhm.
And I decided to call myself an innovation strategist. And then I decided, this innovation strategist needs an alter ego. And that's where the innovation doctor came from.
Ah,
And so while I was still teaching, I changed all my little social medias to
that's how you do it.
innovation strategist,
Step into
innovation
it.
doctor,
Yeah.
and I would just put it out there and said, let me see where this takes me.
And where
And
has it taken you so far?
and so far, it took me out of K-12 schools, which is a step that I really needed to do, was to remove myself from that space just so I could step into being someone different.
Mm,
I
get that.
just needed that. So I'm still doing stuff with education for my full-time job, but being
Mm,
out of schools has given me the breathing room to grow the innovation doctor.
I love that.
Yeah. And right now, I offer workshops. I speak on stages. I um, work with individuals to help them prioritize their creativity
Mm,
and amplify their genius and make their ideas take flight.
I love
That's
that.
what I want to do. I want anyone who has an idea, a seed of an idea, to know that that idea can happen It might not happen overnight, but it can happen, and I can help them strategize the ways in which to put these things together. Because not only am I an innovator, but we mentioned before the collaboration piece, I'm a connector. I'm
Mm.
a resource hub. When I was teaching,
Yeah.
my role was to work with other teachers to help them do innovative things in their classroom, which meant I had to learn something about every subject. I had to know a little bit about math. I had to learn a little bit about science. I had to know a little bit about history. And when I walked through the world, I walked through wanting to connect people to the ideas and resources they need to make things happen for themselves.
Absolutely. What has been one of the most creative things that you had the pleasure of helping someone with? Their
Mm,
outcome, how creative
yeah,
they get.
yeah. I feel like there's so many, but there's a conference that I have for the past few times that they've offered the conference. I ran a workshop that was around redesigning your wellness and self-care
Mhm.
strategies, routines, being the innovative superhero in your life.
Yes.
And at the end of those workshops, I'm always amazed because I bring my little portable pop-up maker space. So I bring all the fun stuff. I bring the markers and the stickers and the paper and the glue and the hot glue and all the things. And I'm always amazed when someone says, "This is the first time I've played like this since elementary school." And my
Mm,
mind is always blown.
mm.
How is this the first time as an adult that you have crafted and played like this since you were a child?
I could see that. I could see that. I
That's
have adult coloring books.
yes. And that's the transformation. When people realize either what they've been neglecting in their lives,
Yeah.
um, and are reminded that, wow, I've really this one person who did the workshop, she realized that she loved doing things with her hands. And she
Mm,
wasn't doing, we sit at our desk jobs, we do our little computing, and she
absolutely.
wasn't doing a lot of things with her hands. And she realized that she needs to bring more of that into her world because that's what makes her happy.
Yeah.
Those are the types of transformations that just a 90-minute design thinking workshop can bring to you is make you realize that um, the things that you've been ignoring all of a sudden come to the surface.
So let's talk about the design thinking framework or the session. Are you allowed to kind of walk us through what that would
Yeah,
look like?
yeah, yeah. So the design thinking framework, it has, there are different frameworks for it. The one I teach comes from the Stanford D School, Design School, and it's a five-stage process. The first stage is empathy. So usually in a workshop or during a course session, I'll
Mhm.
walk people through activities that help them reflect on themselves and their lives, tune in more to the things that they value, what their passions are, things that they might not have thought about, activities they might not have thought about for a while,
Mm,
surface those up. And that's our empathy stage. So normally, if a company is utilizing this tool, that's where they go talk to their customers and observe their customers and get their customer feedback about their product or service, right?
hmm.
So instead of it going outward, I have the participants reflect on themselves. And then we move to the second stage, which is to define the problem. And in this stage, it's great because often the problem that we bring to the table is not really the problem we need to solve. And that's the place where people often participants are like, "Oh, I thought my problem was this." But really, it's a lot deeper.
Let's get to the
Um,
music pattern, shall we?
Sorry?
No, I said the conversation is let's get to the meat of the matter, shall we?
Exactly, exactly. And so this process really has you the define stage, defining the problem has you converge really deeply to the heart of what's your true issue. And then the next stage is ideate. And
Mhm.
that's where you get to start brainstorming. And that's where we start to diverge, right? So you get to come up with lots of solutions. And this is the stage where I tell participants, release all judgment. We
Mm,
often have a problem and all right, this is my solution. Is that really the best solution? Is it the one that you should pursue first? Have you thought about all the different possibilities and thought beyond your scope? One example I like to bring up, especially when I'm doing stuff around self care and wellness,
yeah.
is if your solution is, I need to have a massage every day, write that down. Don't edit yourself. Don't judge yourself for it. Don't start to say, oh, I can't afford that. It's not a thing that could ever happen.
Solutioning it out already. No, I can't.
Yeah, yeah. Don't
Mm,
don't worry about if you can do it or not do it. It's a solution that you thought was viable, so write it down, right?
yeah, I love
So
that.
that's the idea stage, and then after that is prototyping. So prototyping is where you build out one of your solutions. And often a prototype, people think of it as something physical, like you have to build something physical.
Right.
There are a lot of lo-fi prototypes that you can create. So tools like mind maps or storyboards or journey maps or timelines, or you could journal a letter to yourself. Those are all different ways that one could prototype a solution in their life.
I love that.
Um, and then you want to take that prototype and test it out. What's take one small action out of that thing that you can just take a step in a direction and see where it goes.
See where it goes. Yeah, I
Yeah,
love that. I
yeah,
love that. This sounds like all of the problem solving ways that I know how to do,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Test it, experimented with it. Like, what's the worst that could happen?
exactly.
How,
The worst thing that could happen is that the experiment fails, and because you've brainstormed so many different solutions, you
right.
now have a list of things that you can go back to. All right, that was not the right direction. I can go back and I can try something else on my list.
I love that. I love that. And I can see where failing could kind of possibly be a creativity killer too, though. How can people or what happens when that tends to happen? How do you get them back on track?
Yeah, it's all about building a muscle. It's a muscle. This creativity and innovation, it's a muscle. I tell people I did not get here because I just followed a process. I
Usher.
got here because I've taught this process probably 1,000 times over between kids and adults alike, and I just practice.
Yes.
It's a practice mechanism. I am at the point where I do this so much that I'll try anything. I'll go any route. I'll put anything out there, but I'm only comfortable with it because I've practiced so much. So for many, the first time you fail, it feels so heavy and devastating. But the more you practice, the more you put those experiments out there, the more you test them, you just build the muscle. And over time, you become very comfortable with fail fast, fail often, because that's where my learning is going to come in. That's where I get the information about it's good to know, no, that's not going to work. As much
Mm,
as it is good to know, yes,
good.
that's the
I
place.
like that.
Knowing, I feel. failing and knowing the no's is better than having knowing the yeses all the time, because then at least you know where your boundaries are, where the things are, places you're not going to go,
Yeah,
directions you're not going to go.
in my profession, we have a kind of have a saying, collect 100 no's.
Yes. Yeah.
You get there real fast. I love that. I love that.
Yes.
I
Yes.
love, 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 love that. Practice also really, like you said, builds that muscle.
Yeah. We have to practice.
So with that said, you've worked with professionals that are on the verge of burnout,
Hmm.
literally like a step away. How can they reclaim their creativity and be and it become a form of self-care and renewal? Like
Yeah.
we talked about that.
Yeah. What's important to remember is it's not going to happen overnight, right? Burnout develops over time. It doesn't happen just one night you wake up and I'm burnt out. No, you've been ignoring the warning signs for for a long time, and so unraveling that is going to take time. But I say you do it one moment at a time. 5 minutes a day. You mentioned you have some adult coloring books.
I do, girl. I got two.
So I have a few myself, and I was
Mm-hmm.
doing one during, I have a creativity social club. And as part of that social club, I host twice a month a chat and play. So it's an hour of time where you can bring, well, your creative project, whatever you want to do, and we're just hanging out and playing and chatting on Zoom. And so one of those sessions, I started this adult coloring thing, and I'm a very detailed oriented person. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I like to do every little thing in a different color. And I started doing it, and this is going to take me forever. Um, and was like, all right, well, it'll take me like 5, 10 sessions to get this one coloring page done. Which, I could do in 5 minute bursts, set a timer, set a song during the workday, and just do some coloring to like relax a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But then I discovered a friend of mine sent me an Instagram of this person who creates these post-it size coloring books, and they're really simple. Actually, I have one right here.
Yeah, let's see.
They're super simple. They're
Oh,
really simple coloring pages. So could take 1 5 minutes during the workday. I need a little break. Color my page, put on a nice song, and there you have it. There's the start. There's the start to my practice. 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
The 5 minutes we take to go to the restroom, we can take 5 minutes for our
Yeah,
creativity, right?
I love that. I love that. I absolutely love that. So that can help that busy professional get back on track and create a practice of being able to renew their creativity. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, what are some practical everyday practices professionals can do? We talked about the one with the little um,
Coloring page.
yeah. Are there any others? Because I imagine, you know,
Yeah,
oh my God.
there are so many that you can do. I have on my YouTube channel, I've got a series called The Innovation Gym, which are really short creative activities that a person can do. I also have a couple of short 5 day creative challenges in my uh, creativity social club community. It's a free community, so anyone can join. And I, the activities are very simple, from writing a 6 word story to finishing the first line of a book or the last line of a story. And I try to make them very different modalities, right? Because everyone thinks in different ways. But there are lots of little things like from little writing blurbs to doodles to doodling to my fun one that I love to do is
Yes. Which one?
take, go to your camera,
Mm-hmm.
look, find a picture that you like,
Uh-oh, are we doing this together? Let me go to my camera.
and explore a filter. There are so many filters available to us, and we probably don't. I don't even use, all the filters on my camera.
Oh, I find my filters on my camera. I just had my last guest last week. There are filters in here. Like, so we're live via Zoom.
Yeah.
She was telling me that she really didn't have lipstick on, that it was a filter from the Zoom. I was like,
Zoom.
what? You can put a
Yeah.
mustache on. We were in here playing around
You
with
were
Zoom.
playing around with all the yes, you can put
Oh
all
my
the
God.
ads and
Yeah,
all the
I
different ones.
didn't
Yeah.
even know that that was there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was hilarious to me.
Yeah. So you can do that with on your phone. You can go to edit on
Okay.
most phones, and there are all types of filters that you can use.
On the camera. I have an iPhone. Is it the iPhone
Um,
or is that,
so once you choose a picture,
oh, that's right. I got to choose the
you
picture.
gotta choose the picture,
Oh,
and
let me go
then
find a photo then.
yeah, find a
Let me
photo that you
try.
like, and then choose a a
Oh,
picture.
okay, I found a photo.
And then once you click on that, usually there's an edit button, maybe. I have an Android.
Yeah,
Um, but there
yeah.
should be an edit button, and then there should be all types of filters that you can use.
Let's see how this works. Yep, it actually literally says filters.
And you can just play and see how your photo changes, how the
Made it
feel,
black
look
and
and
white.
feel.
I don't know if we can see that.
Yeah,
I made it black and white. Come back.
I can see. Yeah.
Yeah, this was
Yeah.
just this past weekend. I
Yeah.
was hanging out in New York. That's cool. That is pretty cool.
And that's creativity in your pocket right there.
I love
Pretty easy to do, and have access and pick that up right away.
something new today. Well, that's a great tip that we can use right away and be creative. Play with the edit feature on your photos in your phone. That's
And
good.
yeah.
That's good. I like that. I like that a lot, actually. Now I learned something new today.
All right. It's always good. Always good to be in collaboration because you're always learning something new.
What is one small but powerful mindset shift professionals can make today to start living and working more creatively and joyfully?
Mm. The biggest mindset shift is to be curious. Just be curious.
Ooh,
Be
that's
curious and ask questions. Ask why. Ask yourself why. Why am I doing this?
mm,
We don't stop enough to ask ourselves why we're doing something or why is this way?
mhm.
Why why am I going to bed at midnight every night? This is a question I ask myself some nights.
I
And
think I
what
feel
can I
seen.
do? What can I do to change that script if it's something that I want to change, right? But we have
Mhm.
to be curious enough to ask the question and curious and vulnerable enough I think often we don't like to ask the questions because we're afraid of the answers.
Absolutely. I'm writing this down. I'm going to repeat this to some people. This is good.
But we need to be, if we can be more curious, that will propel us to take more action
Absolutely.
because we won't want to, we'll get fed up with ourselves sticking to the status quo eventually.
Girl, now you know how I feel about the status quo. We was having a
Yes.
conversation around that earlier. That
Right?
is why we're here, right?
Right.
Because we've been maintaining the status quo and it is just not working. It
Yeah.
does lead to that burnout and overdoing and all of the things.
Yes.
Yeah. So be curious, ask yourself questions, and be vulnerable enough to be real with yourself about them. I-
Yes.
But
And
because I
sometimes
believe people, you're the only one with the answers, right?
you are, you know.
Yeah.
No one else can tell you what to do. I mean, we live our lives like people are supposed to be telling us what to do, but you are your own designer. It is your life to design
Yeah.
and make yeah, to make to take action and step forward into. And someone in the chat just said asking yourself the question, what if? That is a great
Ooh,
question.
that is a great question.
Yeah.
Hi, Goonies girl. Love that.
Yes.
Yeah. We have on the coaching scene, a question for that is why? The
Yes.
5 whys. So you ask the initial question around why, and then once you answer it, whatever that answer was, you make that a question and just drill down to get to the root.
That is one of the design activities for the define stage, for defining the problem,
Mm,
for getting deeper to the heart of the problem. You have your initial problem and you do that ask why 5 times.
I love, 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 love that. Let's see. Let's see what else I got on my magic question board. You've been answering all of the questions, so I didn't really have to ask them. But let's take a turn on the personal side.
Yeah.
What's a moment in your life when you felt completely stuck creatively, and how did you pull yourself out of it?
Mm, that's a good question. I was thinking about that and thinking that time I explained to you about um, being burnt. I will say, actually, this is a good one. Just feeling burnt out as an educator. Um, if you have any educators in your life, you will know that
Mm-hmm.
that life is probably the most thankless life and profession that exists only because you are working from the time you wake up to the time you go to bed and on your weekends, and your brain does not stop. So even if you are taking time off, you're thinking about that kid, you're thinking about that
Mm-hmm.
activity, you're thinking, how do I make this better? I didn't reach this one kid, this one person didn't do so successfully, or this kid is flying through all of my curriculum. What can I do next to keep student happy? So many ways, and you are just going, 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 and you are burnt out. And for me, that process, every 2 years or so, I would ask myself, what, how am I gonna get out off this hamster wheel? Because
Mm-hmm.
I was exhausted. I was exhausted. I was ready to hit the door, but I didn't know what else to do. That
Yeah.
was my life. I'm all like, I'm an educator through and through. That's what I do. I teach the students, I teach the teachers.
Yeah.
How do I transfer these skills to something else?
Mm-hmm.
And that part, really took some creative thinking. And I don't even know that I've fully creatively thought about how to leave education,
Yeah.
but found myself getting out of K-12 schools more out of a deep desired desperation because I knew I was sinking. And if
Yeah.
I stayed any longer, I was just gonna lose myself. And then I'd be far gone. So I did a slight shift out. I'm
Yeah.
still in education, but setting that beacon is the thing that really helped. That renaming of myself as the innovation doctor and an
Yeah.
innovation strategist, that was the creative thing that I did that really set the stage in motion, right? It started that propelling me to that next stage. I didn't know what that was, but
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I needed something to hold on to. I think often when we're stuck and we feel our lowest and we're a little burnt out, that we feel, I felt very much stuck.
Yeah.
Like there was a boulder and I didn't know how to move it. But
This is
setting that beacon, I didn't know where it was going to take me, but
mm-hmm.
it at least gave me, you know how they say, that little glimmer of light, that little hole of light. If you can just walk towards that little light that's out there, it'll start to get bigger. It'll start to grow. It'll start to, flourish and you'll
Yes.
see it.
I
And
love
that's
this so
it.
much for you.
You have to just, that beacon was the part that got me unstuck. And then the willingness to step into it and experiment and see where that idea of being an innovation strategist was going to take me. And it's taken me a lot of different places. At first I started working with educators. And then I
Mm.
realized that it was very difficult to work with educators, being an educator, still being an educator in school, um, and seeing that educators just aren't, it's not that they're not quite ready to put creativity as their priority. As
Mm.
much as I know that educators need that in their lives,
Absolutely. But they're
uh,
not ready yet.
they're not primed and ready yet. And we're all not paid the best because we're not treated like the professionals that we should be treated here in the US. And so I knew that if I was going to grow my business so that I could make money, and share my word with more people, that I had to do a little pivot. So that's when I decided I would just open it up more to working with professionals in any scope. And educators are professionals. They're just not treated like professionals, but they are. So still open to working with educators and teachers, but also opening my world to the busy professional, because as I walk in the world and I encounter various women and I talk to them about their creativity and they're like, yeah, back in the day I used to sew, or back in the day I used to like to bake,
Right.
or back in the day I used to play the piano. I don't do that anymore. I really should. I really like to, but I don't
Yeah.
know how to get started. I don't know what to do. I don't know. I feel so overwhelmed with life, adult responsibilities. How do I work that in? And
Mm-hmm.
um, so that's where I am, helping people figure that out, how to work that in. What's
I love that.
and creating holding spaces for people to bring that into their world.
That's such a beautiful journey of you figuring that out to help people get back home. I
Hmm.
love that to their creativity. That ultimately, to me, sounds like a level of their essence.
Yes. Yeah.
I love, 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 love that. And for your clients, it has to be so freeing.
It is. It's beautiful to see people shift an identity from where they start to going through the process and realizing that they need to make a change because their life depends on it.
Right,
They
right.
can't settle for that's, as we talked about, the status quo. They can't keep just going through the motions. A need to make some type of shift, take some action to propel them in a different direction.
Yeah.
That's the important part. Yeah.
Well, we've got a question here for from Goonies Girl. She struggles with chronic fatigue and tries to manage her energy using spoon therapy. Any tips for creativity when exhausted or lack energy?
Mm. So that's a great question. And often I will tell you, and Selena can probably attest to, when you're being an entrepreneur and you're uh, starting up your business, you are working all the time. And I, for myself, also have a full-time job. So I'm doing full-time job and working on my business. And often I do feel unenergized and a little bit exhausted. And the creativity thing that I go to, I love a good cup of tea. Goonies girl, love a good cup of tea and a beautiful song. Dance it out, feel the spirit. Um, I find that that is enlightening because often when you're exhausted, you don't want to. I don't want a watercolor. I don't want to color. I don't want to. I just often relaxing our minds is probably one of the better things that we can do for ourselves, especially if we're chronically fatigued and exhausted. Just sitting with, thank you, Goonie Girl, because now I need to bring back my nighttime ritual. Sleepy time is my favorite nighttime tea. A cup of tea and a beautiful song or some music is a great way a good step in that direction. Because often when you're that tired, you can't, it's hard to step out of that. I hope that's helpful.
I look it up. I have never heard of spoon therapy. So I want to find out what
Oh,
that
yeah.
is
I've
because
never either.
I also have some recommendations. Have you heard of spoon therapy,
I have
Dr.
not.
Abigail? Let's check it out. I'm going to go to my handy dandy uh chat GPT over here and ask him a couple of questions. I just named my chat GPT's name is Oracle. It's disruptor, it's the disruptor Oracle.
Nice. Oh, I need to name my chat
Calling it Ori for short. So
Ah,
let's ask this question. Let me get in here. I'm doing it on my phone. So we're gonna get some answers. 1 second. And
mm-hmm.
feel free to drop it in the chat if you like, or tell us if we're on the right track here. Ori, what is spoon therapy? Y'all won't believe the way y'all know I'm the disruptor, so we keep it 100 over here on these conversations. It said, "Oh, that's a damn good question. Let's get into it." Okay. Spoon therapy is based on the concept of spoon theory. It was originally created by Christine Miserandino, who lives with lupus, as a way to explain the energy limits people with chronic illness experience daily. Man, maybe that's what's going on with me. But hear me when I say this. This applies to burnout, stress, overwhelm, and damn near every disruptor I coach who's been giving their spoons away to everybody but themselves. So it talks to me. Let
Yeah.
me just, it talks to me in
Seems
reference
like.
to my ideal client, right? Who she is. So
Ah,
it's like, this is what
yeah.
she's dealing with. It says, so here's the raw truth. You start your day with a limited number of spoons. Each activity costs you a spoon. Waking up, getting dressed, working, taking care of family, running your business, handling drama, etc. If you're not intentional, you run out of spoons fast. Okay. And guess what? You're depleted, snappy, drained, and barely holding on. I have experienced this. I didn't know that I needed to count my spoons. I'm liking this. Some days you wake up with fewer spoons than others, especially if you're living with chronic pain, here, stress, or mental health struggles. All three of those. Okay. All right. And so spoon therapy, in its essence, is treating those spoons like sacred currency. It's prioritizing what deserves your energy, preserving spoons for what actually matters to you, and not apologizing for resting or saying no when your spoon count is low. So, uh,
Yes.
Goonie girl. So I was going to add to this, and she says a good cup of tea and curling up on the couch with an audio book. I guess I wouldn't have thought this could be considered being creative. I need to expand what I consider creativity. Absolutely. And I will say too, so I have reminders that show up. I have a midday reminder and I have an evening reminder that shows up to ask me, what do I need? Like, because in the moment. And what I was thinking, because you mentioned your energy level and exhausted, one of the questions it'll ask me is, do I need a nap?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? If you can bake naps into your life, because then it will give you the energy, because a nap is like slowing you down totally. You know, be that little girl, that kid again that needs to take a nap. Because you ain't gonna be right if you don't get your nap in. I have a friend that is a pediatrician, and I've known him for almost 30 years, and he takes a nap every single day. Every single day. That would be my 2 cents after learning about the spoon therapy, because it sounds like, you're still kind of struggling with it. So, and your cue could be for the nap is when you curl up with that book, right? Or say, hey, I'm going to go read a book, but really the book is going to help you take a 30-minute nap.
Yes.
Or just set the reminders to go take a nap and ask yourself, what do I need?
Mm-hmm.
So midday check-in is always excellent, I feel like. That's just my 2 cents. And we've got another one. Hey, Roxy. That's our sister Roxy, Roxy's Kitchen Exclusives. She said that was deep. They need to change because their life depends on it. Wow, so true.
Very, very true. And to go back to Goonies Girl about creativity, rest, not being creative. Um, in order to be a creative human being, you have to rest. Your brain needs that time to relax and refuel itself. And if you think about it, often the times that we are most creative are when we are in relaxed states. So I
Absolutely.
get my best ideas when I get up out of my chair and I go for a brief walk or while I'm in the shower, or um, after I've taken a nap or some type of brain break.
Mhm.
So creativity doesn't have to be an active action towards making something or doing something. Relaxing is also part of that creative state because it's when we are most relaxed that our best ideas come out.
Absolutely. Hi, Debbie. Thank you for joining. You can absolutely, there'll be a replay when we're done. It will be right available right away. Thank you for joining. She said, wish I had caught you ladies from the beginning. We're just glad you're here now. And I talked about that at the beginning. What I found for my creativity to show up is that I need to have rest,
Yes.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Thank
If I don't get, which I haven't been because I'm a budding entrepreneur, and I don't get enough hours of sleep. But the nights I get 8 hours or more, I wake up and my next day is like I can. The days I get less sleep, I feel like I'm slogging through the day and everything takes more effort. So, yes, the rested
so
mind is the creative mind.
absolutely. And so, Dr. Abigail, the coach in me, and when I'm sharing with my clients, and we were talking about this, right? The self-care and the wellness.
Yes,
May I coach you here a little bit?
I'm coachable, indeed.
So we can start our business and still take care of ourselves well. So I would challenge you to do a time study to
Oh,
find out where your time is going that you are not getting enough rest. Because we both know how important it is. I have to get 7 hours for me to be at my maximum, to feel rested and not wake up tired. And
yes.
so I set my alarm by if don't go to bed till midnight, then my alarm is changed from 5 to 7 because I know I've got to have 7 hours of sleep. So if you're not finding that time, um, do a time study. And that's just pretty much tracking yourself for 7 days to find out where the time is going that you can take your time back for your night's sleep.
I
Would you
like it.
accept this?
I accept it. I
Awesome.
do.
We'll report back next week, ma'am.
All right.
And it's just take a piece of paper and decide which day you're going to get started and track if you can track. Ideally, every 15 minutes is good, but 30 to an hour, what's going on in that time period to see where your time is. And the goal is normally we do it around business, like finding time for your business, at least 10 hours per week to work on your business. You can do
Mhm.
it that way, or finding time so that you can have that rest time.
Mm.
That's the goal is
Okay.
what you're looking for.
Okay. All right.
Roxy has joined me before. I have a series or yeah, I did on my YouTube. It's called What to Do When You First Start Your Business. So there, I think I have 5 or 7 key tips there that might be helpful as well.
All right. Yes, I
Awesome.
will I will take this on. That is a great idea of just for a week tracking where all of my time goes outside
Yeah.
of
That
my
information is powerful. It changes things when you now are aware.
yes. Yes.
It's out of
Yes.
your head.
A little design thinking on myself. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we need, right? We need to see each other,
Exactly.
right? To be able to help one another move through some of the challenges that we have. I love this. So we've been collaborating in the collaborating here.
Indeed.
All right. Let me ask you this question.
Hmm.
I have 4 questions I'd love to ask you. So if we still got time,
We have time.
Okay.
I'm here for it.
Who inspires you as a creativity advocate? Is there someone who pushed you to think differently or dream bigger, or maybe it's a podcast, a book?
Mm. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. That is a great, great question. Um, wow. So I read a lot. So this is why I'm stymied. I read a lot and I listen to a lot of podcasts. And by reading a
Mhm.
lot, I listen a lot, I should say. I every morning I go on a about a 40-minute walk, and that's
Mm,
my learning, listening, expanding my mind time. And so I listen to a lot. I've listened to a lot of books on, habit building, innovation,
yeah.
um, creativity, and you know what my favorite book to date has been? Looking on my shelf here. Where is it? Um, it it's very intriguing. It changed
Hmm.
my life. It's called The Good Enough Job: Reclaiming Life from Work.
Ooh, the good enough job. That's good.
And for me, um, it talks about full-time work and what that means to us as people. Um, but it also really defines how we think about work
Yeah,
and how our work, in this modern day culture in the US really does lead us to burnout and a lot of stress and overwhelm and these fatigue syndromes that we've been talking about.
yeah.
And it's really about just rethinking your relationship to work. And one thing that I got out of this book from someone that the author he interviews, is that they go to work, they get their money, and then they come home. And I was all like, oh, you mean my life does not have to be wrapped up in what I do on a day-to-day basis? It can just be transactional?
Mhm.
Okay. But talking about just reclaiming your time and your life from your work, and whether that's, in my case, from the lens of having a full-time job and working on my business, finding the hours to work on my business. But even if you have your own business, thinking about what are you really need to be doing and how you're utilizing your time, right? Back to my task study of how I'm using my time.
Yeah.
But this book is, yeah, one that I just, well, I'm that type of person. I put all
Well,
the little tabby tabs and
who's the author?
so I can, Simone Stoltz. So I think it's Simone Stoltz. Stolzoff.
How
Simone
do you spell that? S
SimoneStolzoff.
Stolzoff.
FF. Hmm. And Simone is a he, just because I know how our brains work. I know how my brain worked. But yeah.
That is good. That sounds excellent. I'm going to check it out. Let's see. We've got a couple of comments before I ask this next question. Goonies girl says rest is a dirty word in today's productivity obsessed culture. And I call it maintaining the status quo, right? That is what's gotten us here in the first place. So as the disruptor, we've got to do something disruptive to stop, like you said, being on that hamster wheel, Dr. Abigail.
Yep.
Absolutely. And then Roxy, she said, I've never thought of a nap. of a nap as being creative, but it makes sense. In 30 minutes, is 30 minutes too long? 30 minutes is exactly the amount of time that a nap is. If you if you sleep longer than 30 minutes, you are asleep. That's not a nap. She said,
Yes.
I get nervous that I'll go to sleep and sleep way too long. No, set your timer, be intentional about taking that nap. And as you get in the practice of it, it it'll change your life. It really does.
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't take,
I will
mhm.
set mine for 28 minutes. They say, I think 26 to 28 minutes is the time, the perfect time. So I'll go lay down and I'll say 28 minutes on my watch. And yeah.
I love that. Now, Debbie said, Selena, do you have notifications that go out when you have your lives? I always come in late. This is Debbie Garcia. Hi, Debbie. I
Hi,
thought that was
Debbie.
you. Um, I believe that you would have to set it yourself. Um, put the at the top of your YouTube, you click the little bell up by the profile for me for subscribing to my page. That's what I believe. And I appreciate you asking that question.
I think that is true. I believe that to be true as well.
Okay.
Once
Yep.
you subscribe and press the bell, it'll send a notification to your phone when the live is about to happen.
And we do our best, Debbie, to go live at 7 p.m. Eastern. And I believe you're on the West Coast. So that may be 4 p.m. for you.
Hmm.
But I'm so glad you're here. You made it. Awesome, awesome. And okay, thank you, Dr. Abigail. We
No
got
problem.
we got three more questions. All right. I love answering this question, asking this question. If you could go back and give advice to your younger self about embracing creativity and innovation, what would you say?
Oh my gosh, you do not have to pick a lane. I just gave, well, not just gave, when did I give it? It was a while back, but I did a career talk for a high school, a local high school, for their career week. And it was all about embracing my adventures as a multi-potentialite. So I learned this word multi-potentialite a year or so ago.
Write that down. Multi-potential,
Potentialite,
like Mickey.
yes. Um, and yeah, it's basically a person who is multi-passionate, who has multi-passions. And I learned about it through this woman, Emily Wapnick. She has a TED Talk, so you should go out there and look that up. Just look up how to be everything Emily Wapnick. She'll come up. And she talks about this multi-potentialite being, and that, you know, most of us, as we've been grown up, we've been taught there's only one lane. You got to choose a lane, and that's the lane you have to be in. So most of my life was about choosing between my left brain and my right brain. As I said, I'm a trained computer scientist, very logical, very
Yeah.
structured, but I am also an artist. I love art. I love to dance. I love music. And those two worlds were constantly at odds with each other when you talk about picking one lane. So
Mhm.
the talk that I did for these young people was saying, you don't have to choose. You can be a computer scientist and you can be an artist. If I wanted to still be a musician, I could do that too. And you can ebb and flow. You might have a season where you're doing one thing and then you switch seasons to the next thing. Or
Yeah.
you might have be that person who just does things in parallel. It can be any way you want, but you don't have to just pick a lane and be that thing. And
Yeah.
that's what if I could go back and tell my younger self, you don't have to choose. You can do both, and you don't have to struggle to piece them together. Because that was my big academic part of my
Mhm.
academic career was just always like, how do I merge these two sides of my brain together? And I managed to do so, studying computer graphics, but it still didn't really fully feed my soul,
Right.
right? Yeah.
These are some Roxy says she calls herself multi-passionate and she always has been.
Yes.
I probably have too. I didn't have language for it. I was a free spirit. I did what I felt like, how I felt like, and what I felt like.
Yeah, and that's it. Having the language, like once I heard the word, I was like, "Oh, of course that's me. Of course I've always been a multi-passionate person who's, followed their different blisses, but having the language really helped me. And so my younger self, if I had that language to begin with, I wouldn't have felt so compelled to be computer science, engineering. That's the path, that's the road. And truth be told, we live in a different world as well.
Hmm.
So multi passions is available to everyone nowadays. I think just some of us who are older and have gone down this different path and been told this one thing have to now, you know, break out of it. And you know that term, jack of all trades, master of none, Goonies girl? I
Hmm.
heard a podcast, and if you all have to look it up, it was a podcast between Trevor Noah and Simon Sinek,
Yeah.
and they talked a bit, or maybe it was just on Trevor Noah's podcast, whatever. But that phrase, there's more to it. It's we always stop at master of none, but there's more to it, and I don't remember what the rest of the phrase is. I feel like I need to look it up because um, it's important. Jack of all trades.
This has been so rich.
Um, ah, is Jack of all trades, master of none is an idiom that describes someone who is competent in many skills but not an expert in any one. But the full
Hmm.
quote is a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than the master of one. I'll say it again.
Mm.
A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than an expert of one. That's the part we never hear. So
Mm.
we hear this phrase, oh, jack of all trades, they don't master anything. But no one ever says that that's a good skill to have. It's good to be someone who can connect the different pieces because they have expertise in so many different areas.
I know quite a few people like that. My brother is one,
Hmm.
and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because two things can be true, right?
Always. Right.
All right. Roxy says, when I used to hear that, I would tell people they didn't know what they were talking about because I knew how to do four and five things very well. And like you said, I would have ebb and flows. Yes.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm here for it. All right. This is such a good, rich conversation. Doesn't it really get good when you get towards the end? My goodness.
Yes.
Okay. So this has been so rich, Dr. Abigail. Where can the folks find you and how?
Oh, yes. So,
What you
my
got going on?
My friends, I have a lot of things brewing, and I'm so excited for all of you. So, I do have a free school community called the Creativity Social Club, which is filled with workshops and activities, short activities, and little challenges and labs. I call them creativity labs, where you build small projects. And it's called Creativity Social Club, and you can get there if you go to heyinnovationdoctor.com/create. You can go there and you can sign up and be a part of that community of multi-potentialite people who are just excited who are looking to spark and reconnect to their creativity. And as part of that offering, I offer 2 live calls that I call the chat and play, which we talked about, which for me are probably the most nearest and dearest thing to my heart because that is 2 hours a month that I am guaranteed to do some playing. Guaranteed 2 hours a month. Um, Bringing any creative project you want to bring, and we just get on Zoom and people are coloring, folding origami, doodling, whatever it is, organizing. Organizing is a creative feat as well. Let me tell you, I have a stack of papers here. One day I just sat organizing my papers. Um, all important, but just having that dedicated time. But what I'm most excited to invite you all to is my newest venture experiment, I like to call. It's
Yeah.
called the Rubber Duck Sessions.
Ooh.
And the Rubber Duck Sessions is idea networking for women. And I host that twice a month as well. And why the rubber duck sessions? Well, because as I said, I'm a trained computer scientist, and there's
Hmm.
a term in computer science called rubber duck debugging. So often as a computer programmer, you are programming on your own, you get stuck a lot, and one thing that has come up in that community is the idea of talking to a rubber duck, talking out your coding problem to a rubber duck. But the whole process is as you're talking to the duck, you
Yeah,
uncover your mistakes and you figure out your problems because you're speaking it out loud to someone. And
absolutely.
so the Rubber Duck Sessions is all about bringing your ideas, your challenges, your thoughts to a community of women who are also looking for feedback or on their ideas and their thoughts and their challenges. And it's 90 minutes of pure networking bliss, but not in the way that we normally think of networking. It is really about bringing your ideas, your thoughts, your challenges, and having a community of individuals to help give you feedback. And hopefully, you leave with one small action you can take towards that idea.
I love that. I love that. Is that a paid
That
pro
also is a free networking community. You can find that information on that at heyinnovationdoctor.com/network. The next session is actually this Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. You can go there and sign up, and you are more than welcome to bring any thought, idea, challenge to the table, and we'll the way we work, I set it up, give you time to think about it. We break into small groups, talk
Mhm.
about it with other women there. I do a little demonstration of a design thinking technique, innovation technique, creativity technique, and then we do a second session breakout to talk about action steps and things you've learned and what you're going to walk away with.
I love this. I
Yeah.
love this. I love that. I'm coming. I don't know what's on my schedule Thursday, but I'm gonna work it out. That
All right.
sounds amazing.
All right.
That's
Yes.
really fun.
So
Ah,
those are my offerings to the community, just because I want people to be able to prioritize their creativity and feel like they can get unstuck from any place that they're feeling stuck with an idea or a challenge and move forward from that. And then I'm always available to help people with idea strategizing through their ideas,
yeah,
giving them some accountability and frameworks for taking an idea from idea to reality.
love it. I love it, love it, love it. That I have one more question. Goonie Girl says, thank you. Oh, wait. Okay. Before that, we have Roxy's Kitchen. She says, wow, I'm so mad. Folks were always trying to make me feel bad for being good at multiple things. No, ma'am. Take up space. Take up space,
Yes.
Miss Roxy. Absolutely. And Goonie Girl says, thank you for this informative discussion. Thank you for showing up to join us in this conversation. We're here every Sunday around 7 p.m. Eastern. We'd love to have you back. And my final question,
Mm.
Dr. Abigail, is do you have any questions for me?
Oh my goodness. My question for you, Selena, is where do you see creativity playing a role in the life of the people you serve?
Oh, I see it playing a huge role because this woman has put everything before her, right? So there is so many versions of her that she has not experienced.
Mm.
Possibly her inner child, the little girl in her. I just went with a friend a couple weeks ago. She gave me the opportunity to come hang out with her in Virginia Beach, and I was eating everything in sight. And I was like, my inner girl is just, I'm letting her out the bag. She wants some ice cream. She wanted pizza. We, we did like all of these things. And I was like, I'm too old to be pregnant, so I know it's not that. But she's just showing up. And
Yes.
that is the beauty. I actually did a post, was it yesterday? It might have been yesterday. I was coming back from New York City and I got stuck in the it's only my second time in New York City. I got stuck in the turnstile going through to get on the train. I
Oh,
could not get my suitcase through there, and so I couldn't get me through there. And
right.
so it was hilarious. We finally figured out. I told my girlfriend, I said, you should have just videoed this because this was just too freaking funny. Um, And I did a post saying, I just laughed at myself. It was so funny because sometimes laughing at yourself, it just releases so much, right? Getting the laugh out, the laugh, the cry, the cheering, whatever it is. And I am, I'm in a practice of keeping my heart and mind very light.
Mm.
Um, a community that I'm a member of, the Sacred Women. We were talking a little bit about that before we got on by Queen Afua. And she talks about that, keeping your heart as light as a feather, your heart and your mind, because life has piled so much on top of us, especially as women. And so I believe creativity, we were given that. That is a birthright. And the world and maintaining the status quo and all of the societal and cultural and religious beliefs and things have robbed us of our essence. So that woman that I serve, creativity is a big part of that. And that's why I have so many coloring books because I have her start with that when she is stuck. I
Yes.
have her start with just a coloring book to
Mm.
help her free up her mind
Yes.
from
Yes.
overthinking and overdoing. And I've had friends that have bought me color books that really helped me. I have that, I think they're called Mandarin or something like that, where
Oh,
I isn't that what it's called? Something like,
um,
and
yes, I know what you're talking about.
I have it right here, but I'd have to
Mandala.
mandala, that's what it's
Yes.
called.
Yes.
And it just helps so wonderful. And so I believe creativity is in every space, every part of her life and her journey, and even the versions of herself that she has not met yet.
Mm.
It it is part of the key. It's a
Yes.
cheat code. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that question. Um, because I feel too, it allows the woman to have permission to be able to be creative and let's just let go of some of the stuff
Yes.
that
Yeah.
she's carrying.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I love that.
She needs that in every version of herself.
Absolutely. I
As
appreciate
Roxy
that.
said, even if it's a different version in each season.
Absolutely. I appreciate you asking that question. That's a very powerful question. Absolutely. So if you all are out there, tune in to tell somebody, share this conversation with a woman you know that needs to hear it. Um, Dr. Abigail has a lot to say. We want them to know about her and be able to receive the help that they need. Thank you. Thank you all, ladies, for being here. Appreciate the conversation and the chat. Yeah.
Yes.
Roxy says, I color online using Happy Color and another one made for people of color. It is very calming for me. I'm glad that you have that. I will also add that to your uh, description on this video, Dr. Abigail, as a resource.
Yes.
That's our final time. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go, or anything that we didn't mention?
I just want to say I had such a great time. This was a wonderful collaborative conversation. And I want everyone to remember that you are all creative beings and that innovation, I believe everyone's creative, and I believe that innovation is the way we design our future. Always
Sure.
remember that. Yeah.
I should. Where is my bell? I have a bell around here. Sometimes we have to ring the bell. I was in here cleaning up. Let me see. Did I move the bell? Because that is bell worthy. Here it is. Yes, yes. That's a winner, winner chicken dinner. Well, that is our time. Thank you all for being here. Until next time, we show up here every Sunday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Until the next time, take good care of you.